What it do, y'all? It's your girl Makeup and Travel, and for today's video I wanted to bring you guys another collection video from my makeup collection, but today I wanted to talk about my bronzers. Alrighty guys, so I don't have very many bronzers in my collection, and honestly the ones that I do have they're not very like bam bam. I have a couple but not very many. I will say that I have a neutral to cool undertone, so generally I do not go for bronzers that have a red undertone because they stand out like a sore thumb. I go for cooler bronzers, more neutral bronzers. So all of these are basically drugstore. I don't have any high-end bronzers at all. And one is actually a blush that I use as a bronzer. So I just kind of want to get into it. First, I actually found this from a video that Makeup by Tammy was doing. I will link her channel down below. She ended up using this bronzer, which was the Sun Kiss Giant Bronzer in dark. So I purchased it off of Amazon. I also purchased the medium one as well, but the medium one came cracked, so I didn't use it. I really like this bronzer. I tend to kind of stick close to the darker part where the sun is, and then a little bit of the lighter part, just to kind of combine them so it's not too harsh, because that does show up extremely harsh on my skin tone. But to mix them together, it's a softer bronze, so I really like to mix them together, as you can see. And yeah, I think honestly if I just used the outside, that would be basically a face setting powder for me. But I really do like this bronzer, and it works. It actually shows up on my skin tone, which is honestly extremely hard, and it shouldn't be. So this is one of my bronzers in my collection. Just put it right there. Next I have this NYX 3-step to sculpt, and this is technically supposed to be a contour shade. I got this when I was going through a phase where I was like obsessed with face palettes, and I just wanted to get another one. I thought this could kind of be a bronzer contour. This is an under eye setting powder, and this is a highlight. I have obviously tested this out. It's a decent under eye setting powder, decent highlighter, and this is a very subtle bronzer, very subtle. I would honestly consider this to be more of a I would consider this to be more of a winter bronzer for me. Yeah, that's how I consider it, but I do like it. I do keep it in my collection to use. If I really want a subtle one, I will use it. I have a very subtle bronzer on today, but I like it because it did give some depth. And yeah, so this is a pretty good one. I feel like I'm looking oily. I hope it's not coming across on the screen that I'm oily, but we're just gonna push on through. Next, I wanted to give this a try. This was the True Complexion Contour Palette, medium to dark, from Black Radiance. A lot of YouTubers, people of color, suggest this contour palette as a contour or a bronze. The highlighter is beautiful, fine, whatever. The sculpt, nice. I use this under my under eyes to set all of my concealer. Contour is a very light, it's basically my skin tone. I will link down below, I will list down below a couple of my best shade matches. I have never tried a MAC foundation, so I'm sorry that's not going to be a comparison that you can use, but I have a couple of NARS and Estee Lauder, stuff like that, so I will put them down below so you can compare yourself to my foundation shade to see if this will work for you, maybe not, etc, etc. But like I was saying, this is a very subtle contour blush. This is a very subtle contour bronzer for me. I can use it, but I do prefer to reach for this in the winter because it's going to show up a little bit more on my skin tone than it does in the spring and summer months. Second to last is from the Sahara Blush palette, which you guys will have seen if you're a subscriber or if you've seen any of my videos. Sorry, whew, Lord. If you've seen any of my videos, you will know that I have been using Abby for a while to bronze up my face. It is a blush. It is definitely darker than my skin tone. I can get carried away with this shade and it'll look boom on my face. So I tend to reach for this during the summer because it's really good. It'll actually show up on my skin. During the winter, I feel like I would just go way too overboard way too easily. So I really do like this shade, and I'm glad I have this in my collection. Last for shadows or whatever that I actually use as a bronzer is a bronzer, and I have it in my Made palette. And this is from Divina Cosmetics, and it is Keone. Now they made this purposely not to be a red toned or a warm toned bronzer, but it still is a bronzer. I really like it because, like they said, it's not warm toned. I would say this is definitely neutral, in my opinion, and it definitely shows up on my skin. I mean, there is no pretending this does not show up. This is another color that I have to make sure I do not go overboard with, because if I do, I will look like I got punched in the face on my cheeks. It can go real bad real quickly. But I really do like this bronzer, and I do reach for that mainly in the summer. So you should have seen that, like if you follow me on my Instagram, that was definitely tagged a lot during this summer. So yeah, those are the shadows, blushes, etc. that I use. Oh, there's another one. Give me one second. Okay, so in case you are interested in a warmer bronzer, it is very light on my skin tone, and I actually swatched it. It is right there, but it is warmer than my complexion. It is from the Juvia's Place Masquerade palette, and it is called Fulani. I actually got this idea from another YouTuber, Safari 355, I want to say. I will link her down below. She uses that shade religiously to bronze up her face in almost every tutorial that she has, and so yeah, that is another shadow shade that you could use. So I would always recommend, like, let's say you're not into purchasing as much as I purchase or anybody else purchases, you can always use an eyeshadow as a bronzer. I mean, especially if it's like a Juvia's Place bronze or shadow, because these are big enough to get your bronzer brush in, at least my bronzer brush. So I actually am gonna try this. I haven't tried it, but I wanted to put that out there just in case anybody else was my skin tone, did not want to purchase any of the ones that I've talked about, and you already had this palette. So yeah, I hope this was a good video. I hope it was helpful. I know I tend to go on these periods where I look for bronzer videos for people of color, and it's really hard to see more updated, different bronzers than other people have talked about. I don't have any of the more typical bronzers. I know people usually talk about the Queen Collection bronzer. I don't have that currently in my collection. Some people talk about a Guerlain bronzer like Makeup Forever. I take my own stride. I do very different, I have very different things in my collection. So I really hope this was helpful for you guys, whoever you are. And yeah, it has been real, y'all. Peace.